discussion on STEM at each of the elementary schools. I had asked that this came as an agenda item. There was just, I think a comment made in your update at our last meeting just about STEM at Trailside, and I asked if it was going to be happening at the other elementaries. So just wanted to get a bird's eye view of what everyone was thinking for next year for STEM at elementary level.
Is it okay for me to start?
Absolutely.
Okay, we talked about this afternoon again, and so I put together a handout which will come back again in March with the budgeting items, but we made some decisions today.
Do you have a couple extra ones for a guest today?
I can borrow some from some of my friends. Okay. Yeah, I do. Hot off the press. Basically, in a nutshell, just to give you a little information before I go to Jim, I met with the principals and I had a meeting with Sarah Shepke, Jane, I think was there, several other people, and had a discussion about implementing Project Lead the Way related to next-gen science standards and STEM programming. And so we came up with a proposal that then I followed up and met with the K-4 teachers, the 5th grade teachers and the 6th grade teachers. And the K-4 teachers wanted a little modification in that, so that's what I brought back to the principals today and we talked about. So basically in the next 3 years, this handout shares with you the Project Lead the Way possibilities, but in a nutshell, I can tell everybody that there's 2 programs, well 3, but 2 that apply to our school district. One is the K-5 launch program, which there are 4 kids in each of the grade levels, kindergarten through 5th grade. And so I met with the kindergarten through 4th grade teachers. We talked about the different kits that were available. We talked about the current science programming in the district, and the principals had wanted to start with training in the summer of 2017, and the teachers wanted to move that up, and the pilot teachers, one from each grade level, kindergarten, first, second, third, and fourth, wanted to begin that training in the summer of 2016, because in the launch program, you don't send all the teachers to training, you send the lead teacher to training, and then they train the other teachers. So Anna Armerling, Lindsay Wanasek, Nicole, Nikki Kravchuk, Lisa Roanhouse, and Kate Grosek are all really excited about being the lead teacher for their grade level. They would like to start getting some training this summer, and then prior to the school year of 2017-18, they would train all of their colleagues on 2 of the 4 kits. The following summer, they would train their colleagues on the other 2 of the 4 kits, so that by the 2018-19 school year, all of the Project Lead the Way kits would be implemented in your K-4. In 5th grade, a little bit different. You only have 3 teachers teaching science, so we're going to jump right in, and they're very excited to do so. We actually already began the pre-training to add robotics and automation. Currently, they do Lego robotics. Those materials are typically used at lower grades and are kind of old. So by replacing that with the Project Lead the Way, they'll jump right in there with some training this summer and robotics on automation. And then the following year, they'll add 2 kits, and the following year after that, 1 additional kit. Then, like I said, the K-5 is the launch program. The 6-8 is called Gateway. There's a huge difference between the 2. The Gateway is very intense. The launch are good for, excellent kits for K-5, but they're about 8 to 10 hours, where the Gateway courses are about a quarter, daily for a quarter. So I met with the 6th grade teachers who are really excited to do design and modeling, which they're currently doing at Fox River. It's sort of the Gateway course, or the foundational course for all of the Gateway courses. And Mr. Brazic had gone to a 3D printer training this year from CISA, and so from the discussion with Mr. Brazic, we found out that we can utilize the CISA 3D printers for each teacher can for 3 weeks out of the school year. So the 6th grade teachers jumped right in on that, and they already have those 3D printers set aside for next school year for the design and modeling class, which is wonderful. Just the cost of material $75 a piece per class is what we'll be able to use. That way we'll be able to get some training on 3D printers, try them out, and as you know, it's a technology that's moving and grooving right now, so hey, free is always a great way to go. We won't have it every day, but we'll have that experience for the kids. And then in talking to Mrs. Markle, even after school, I know the 6th grade teachers wanted to do more, so I talked to her a little bit, and I'll go back to the 6th grade teachers and talk about the Magic with Electrons kit too, see if that'll fit in somewhere. But anyways, then for next year, because the 6th grade all will be doing design and modeling, they'll have to do the 7th grade design and modeling just as a transition plan for next year. And then after that year, you can see on your piece, the real reason to get the design and modeling in 6th grade is so that in 7th and 8th grade, students will be open to taking any of those diverse 6 Project Lead the Way courses. And you could put, it'll allow for a lot of flexibility for Mrs. Markle to have 7th and 8th grade students in together and be able to do that. So what we have is just an overall vision of what has rolled out in the last few weeks pretty rapidly, but excitedly. And then I'm working on the training costs, and they're in their big Project Lead the Way two-week convention, so we're waiting for final costs, changes in technology. I'll work with Canon on the technology and the training and all of that kind of stuff to bring this with the final costs, as Mr. Brzezinski wanted for the March board meeting. Costs.
Thank you.
Costs. He likes costs. Okay. Any questions about that? I know I kind of went through that quickly. Or
No, I'm very grateful for this layout of what that looks like, so that we can have all have a common understanding of that. So thank you.
right. And then this is nice because it gives you a little bit more information, and you can see what some of those other courses are. If you want to look at that, or somebody asks you about it, you have these.
I also like that it's a range of schools. You got some from all 3 of the elementary schools, so I think that keeps it open to all schools.
We did that for this one.
We don't know yet. I mean, part of that is too, we have the space at, say for instance, we have a space at Trailside that's available. And so that'll give us an idea too, if we invest there and in what we want that space to look like there, then we don't necessarily have to have it's the spaces, the maker spaces or the labs look the same in each building. So it's really going to see, gives us an idea. Mr. Dembowski has graciously volunteered to experiment, be the first one out there to figure out what that looks like. And so that gives us an idea too. I mean, the other principals are looking at, well, what do I want to do here? What, as we convert spaces, for instance, Woodfield's a tad more crowded, but if you look at, we're starting to remove the computer lab,
Right.
library. So what do you do with, that space? You might not want to make your space in next to the library, some, and such, but, there are other spaces available too, so you can move things around a little bit. It does give us an option.
When we're talking about the various kits and things like that, does that necessitate the needs for certain spaces, or are we talking certain materials that are used in an existing classroom, or how does that all fit into things?
Project Lead the Way would say that these materials are designed for classroom instruction, but certainly you could do a variety of things. Most of the schools that we visited, it is in the regular classroom. But there are some, like at the middle school, like the computer apps or some of those kinds of things that we saw when we were visiting that were in more of a computer lab setting with other technology being used.
Okay. And that's not to say it would be great if we set up individual spaces in the schools, but going back to, one of my concerns, and I think some of the others' concerns are that we don't want it to be, Trailside has a space for everybody, so only the Trailside kids get to take advantage of that. We want everybody to be able to do it, so if Woodfield is more pressed for space, they may not have a separate classroom for it, but the kids still experience the same thing and have the same opportunities as everybody else in the district.
Right, they'll all get the same, and that's why, I think it's really important to get this.
Right.
And I can try to get that even in board docs with Lynn tomorrow, just so people can see that the programming and the curriculum should be the same for all children, universal guarantee curriculum. But every building does have some unique pieces to it, so
Sure.
that's what I think, and I know Mr. Novosky has some cool things he wanted to share.
Well, I mean, I was asked to come here tonight and kind of share what, at the last board meeting, I kind of said that Trailside's gonna have a STEM lab, okay? And at that time, I was like, well, what's a STEM lab? And why aren't the other schools gonna have a STEM lab? And so, basically, just a little bit of history for this. As I studied John Hattie's research on visible learning, the number one influence on student achievement is what he first called self-report grades, but now he later clarified with student expectations. That reflecting of students. Okay, am I doing my best? How can I improve on this? Are we pushing the students to exceed their expectations? So with this piece, and also learning more about Project Lead the Way and the engineering design process, the part that really stuck out for me was that piece of the engineering design process of that improving, redesigning. How could you make this better? And I was thinking about the iPhone. It's a great tool, but every year they come out with a new one because they improved what was so great before. So with the piece with Hattie's research, with Project Lead the Way, the engineering design process, I'm thinking, how can I change the mindset at Trailside as far as students don't just do a project to get done, to get a grade, to follow a rubric. We really want them and the staff as well to instill in them that, okay, you may think you're done, but what's the next step you can take? How can you improve this? And I just think that having call it a STEM lab or a collaboratory, whatever you want to call it, I think it just be a great place that we can do the Project Lead the Way program, but at the same time have makerspace. I do have a great team at Trailside who have been looking at other schools. I have Ann Omberling, whose daughter goes to the Waukesha STEM School. She has some great ideas as what her second grader has been doing that she can bring back and share about this space. And seeing that we have a lot more space at Trailside, I thought it made sense to utilize that space and create something that's going to be a place to go to let the kids collaborate and explore and create and use your imagination. And maybe we have the robotics tables in there. Maybe we have a green screen so that they can do video recording. We have, like I said, the maker space, literally like tools, hand tools, so we can be building things. We have just loads and loads of stuff that they can use to create whatever their challenge is. So I guess at the last board meeting when I said to make a STEM lab, it was more of a combination of STEM lab, a maker space, just an area where it's really going to build that excitement for the engineering design process that students can go, teachers can go. Hopefully it'll be big enough where we could have maybe 2 classes go, or a second and a 5th grade, and they can work together and have big buddies. I think it's endless what you can do with this. So that's why I was so excited for Trailside, because we have lower enrollment, but hey, why not take advantage of that and make the space and utilize it? So that's where I'm at right now. We're in the planning stages and just really getting ideas. So that's my thoughts on that. Any questions for me?
I think those are great thoughts and very exciting, but like what Tom was saying, just echoing that, how are we looking at that for each of the elementaries? Because I think that's a great opportunity to offer Waterford graded elementaries.
My concern is that, I hope you're not saying that I can't do it because the other schools can't do that, or are you saying?
I don't know that they can, I just want to know that they're exploring those same things too,
Okay.
but I don't want to inhibit your exploration in those things, and I
Yeah.
think, so this would be cool, but how could they do it at Woodfield with being more crowded? What could that look like?
Okay.
How could that be different? What could they do with their space? What movement do they have? Because I think if you value something and find interest in that, we'll find a way. I think we do that very well as educators, but I think just wanting to make sure that all elementaries know that we want that for all of our students, that we value it, and we value that education for them related to STEM, but that we need to look at it district-wide, I think would be my viewpoint.
I agree. I think what the idea here is it is something new, and investing 3 times the money in the first year or 1 time to get an idea, what are the pitfalls, what are the things we really use, what are the things we like, what are the things we need, how much space do we really need? those kind of things. I think the goal is to provide those opportunities for all the students. I absolutely agree. It's a new venture as well for me. Some of those questions that I ask as we go forward on this is, okay, so how did these schools make these initial decisions to do these things, to build these things, to start these programs? And a lot of times it simply boils down to, well, it was a philosophical decision. There wasn't a lot of, so for me, as we're going forward, as we do these things, I really do want to get some data. I do want to understand, is it increasing engagement? What are the benefits? What is it doing for us? I think that's responsible to the taxpayers, but also to the children. I want to do it well, and I want to do it, I want to do it, what's right for the communities. And those are the discussions we've had. And I know that, Shirley, and I know that Chris are both, I know that Shirley and Chris are thinking about ways to do things, similar things in their buildings as well. I think Jim has just sort of jumped on this a little bit ahead of the time, because we do give them that, some reign over their building budget. What do they want to do? He has this space. It's being underutilized now. What can we start transforming it into? Those are things too. I agree. I think something will be available in all the buildings. Maybe they might not look the same. Might be for so I agree with you. And so Jim is just out there. He's very passionate about this.
That's
as
very
well.
exciting.
That's what happens when his mentor is
My darling.
Got some competition.
I love it. I love it.
And both Shirley and I are really grateful that Jim has opened the doors to possibilities. Furthermore, Brad Singer, who's in Jim's building, is really taking an interest. And I know last week, I think it was last week, the sixth grade team got together, and Brad really provided some insight to Shirley's teachers as well as to the Evergreen teachers. So I've been talking with Brenda Serby, who's our sixth grade rep, and Jill Legas, our fifth grade rep. And due to their diligence in looking into this, their eyes are really being opened. So I believe it will be equivalent in some manner. May not look the same, but it will be equivalent in its quality.
And I think if you just get creative with the space that you have and you make a list of the areas, whether it be a computer lab, a small corner in the library, which I know the noise, it will be a factor, but a classroom, it might not be as large as a classroom at Trailside because they have extra space, but I think if the quality is there, that's what matters.
Yeah, and I agree. And part of it is, I think Chris really nailed it there, was that taking advantage of the personnel that we have and at their points on the journey, what they've been thinking, what they've worked through in their heads. And luckily at building, at Trailside, you have Brad who's really thought through some of these things, has ideas of what we can do. And then working with our other staff, and that's kind of how I don't know if Kathy touched on it, when we were laying out the introduction of the programs, the idea of having the trainers work on these, then train the teachers, that same sort of thing. And I think that's what's starting to happen now. I mean, it's always, you always want to jump to the end point, but a lot of times it's the journey. It's getting everybody excited, getting this is what this could look like. These are some of the things we can do. So, and a point that I want to make too is, even with this, what we're planning on doing over the next 3 years doesn't necessarily, that's what we're looking at right now. It doesn't mean it's going to end up that way, and I've had this talk with Jim as well. What we start with, it doesn't have to stay that way. It doesn't have to look that way. It can change. And let's not, if we find that we can do something better or different for kids, be creative and really do something, go in a different direction. We can do that. We just want to think through that process, make sure that everybody's, along for the ride. So that's the important thing. And we'll get there. It's just a matter of what it should look like, because we're doing it a little different than some other people too. So.
Well, I really enjoyed the conversation last month, and I kind of look at this as two separate issues here. One is, what are we going to do with STEM? Where is it going to be? And this is great, Kathy, and I like that, there's no mention of any specific buildings on here as far as one elementary over the other. But I think the board has to look at a separate issue, which is, We have a lot of space at Trailside, and we're running out of space at both Whitfield and Evergreen. And, you know, this year it's 4K, that's going to bring more people to our community over the next several years because it wasn't something we offered before. We'll know in April if the high school is going to be starting to construct one of the best field houses in the area. If we start going then right away next year with STEM Project Lead the Way, that's going to make more buzz, going to bring more people selecting this community when they come. Of course, Chromebooks earlier this year, we implemented one-to-one. So at some point, I think we have to deal with a separate issue is, do we want to come up with a magnet type school within one of our existing buildings? And I corresponded with one of the parents that are interested in STEM, and I said, what a great discussion to have. You know, do we have this pretty robust STEM program everywhere, and then STEM on steroids at Trailside, and then say it's a choice thing, but you know, you'll somehow have to bring your kid there. But if we don't do something, I fear we're going to have to look at redistricting, and that is would be a big headache. I think it would disappoint a lot of community members who chose to build or buy a house in a certain area because they want that area in that building. And I know in my neighborhood, there's turnover starting to happen. We have, 80-some homes, and there's quite a few of the people that live there are probably going to be selling in the next 5 to 10 years. And, you know, will there be young families, I don't know, buying that? There's several neighborhoods in Whitfield that they're building houses right now, and another 3 are going up as we speak. So, you know, we do have to look at a space issue, and do we want to try to alleviate that through redistricting, or do we want to alleviate that by having some type of special program that is at Trailside to fill them up? Because makerspace is great, and you will not be able to have the makerspace at Woodfield for sure, probably Evergreen, that you could have at Trailside. It physically takes up a lot of space, and it's great to have that maybe more robust or done in a different way, autonomy in the buildings with the teachers and stuff, but makerspace won't bring any more students to Trailside. It's just slightly run different.
It's a start.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. But I mean, so I just want to say that, and then also, Dan, you're here tonight, and probably nobody in the community that I know has kind of wrapped your head around this, but more from the industry perspective. Sometimes as educators, we look at some of the prepackaged stuff and all that, and not to put you on the spot tonight, but maybe I would assume maybe something like this will continue to be on our committee agendas, and maybe, because there's many more steps for this, or we could invite you to, if you have some, because, you know, I know you can get
Or
your...
even to reflect at the citizen input at the next meeting, take some time.
You can get your 3 minutes there, but it might be better, or
We
individually.
haven't completed 3 minutes.
Yeah, that's true, that's true.
You can listen at that point, so don't.
But if we invite them to the committee, then we can have it back and forth, where we don't necessarily get that opportunity. Yeah.
So, and I do understand what you're saying regarding the attendance and those things, and I think we could bring that back at a different time for the board to touch base on. So I don't want to dismiss that, but we don't have it
Yeah.
listed here. So just to keep us moving. Anything else regarding STEM at the elementary?
I have a couple questions. First, what do other school districts do? Do they have, districts that are fortunate enough like us to have multiple graded or like K-6 schools? Do they have one school that's specifically for STEM? They do. So is that something we would ever look into doing?
That's
Is
what
making-
Matt's kind of asking us to have that
Okay, that's what I kind
conversation.
of.
But a
was
school
wondering.
within a school. I mean, I think we're not big enough to have.
A full school, but
Perhaps,
just part of it. Okay, so that
yeah.
is weird, okay. And then I guess the other thing is, I don't think that you should be limited at all with what you're doing, or think that we're gonna try to hold you back because of the other two schools or anything like that. Not to say they're not there yet, but you seem very excited about it, and this is something that Dan's been talking about for the last at least 3 years to try to get into here. And from my perspective, I think that you should take it and just run with it, and exactly like what Fox River is doing. They're starting off small. Start with your school, see what happens there, and if it does blossom and we need to take it to other schools, that's what we do, or we create your school into a specialty school for STEM. I think it's great that the conversation started, but it takes people like you to actually take it from a conversation to actually something, and that's always the hardest part. So I'm happy that you are taking the next step and turning it into something that's going to benefit the kids.
Thank you.
anything else for anything? Thank you for all your input this evening, and thank you again for the late updates. Next, we have human growth and development update.